Yeah.
New year, new KTM 690 SMC-R.
It's great, right?
Yeah, really does look great. No competition until now, no competition. Welcome everybody, Ducati Hypermotard 698 Mono. Today in this video we're gonna show you everything you need to know about this and this bike and their differences, so stay tuned.
What a machine!
Hello everybody and welcome to this very much anticipated video by many of you. Today we're gonna try out these new supermotos, the KTM 690 SMC-R, which has been the go-to supermoto for the last years, and the very new Ducati Hypermotard Mono 698. We're gonna test these bikes in different environments, starting with the city. If you wish to only see a certain part of this video, make sure to check out our chapter marks. We will insert them for you so you can watch exactly that part you're most interested in. Now, before we come to the better part, the more fun part of these two motards, I mean using them in the very twisties, we're gonna have to leave this city. I'm here in Barcelona, and to be honest, a use in the city of these bikes is pretty fair. I would say they're very light, they're not too wide, and they're simply very handy and agile. So let's see if they're very practical in the city as well, or if they're only useful in the twisties. Welcome back everybody! Now we're here at a very popular spot amongst youngsters, but not only. In reality, everybody that's got a bike comes here, takes a chill pill and just sits here, just around for a few minutes. It's very warm today, the sun is shining. We've got about 15-16 degrees Celsius, which is a very pleasant temperature for us. And speaking about temperature, let's briefly talk about the use of these bikes in the city. Now let's begin with the heat. We got to say that the Ducati produces a bit more heat than the KTM. However, it is fine. They're both single cylinders and they simply produce heat, but it's fine. Nothing horrible. We have to say though, for fairness sake, that we are using them now in March, beginning of March, so it's not the summer heat that we are used to. Then let's talk about other important aspects. Now, when coming to a stoplight, you can really feel that both engines simply keep on pushing. If you don't press any gas, the bikes will simply keep on pushing themselves. So that is very pleasant as well. What else is there to say? The RPMs, yes, let's talk about the RPMs. Now, the KTM is such a small gauge that it doesn't actually show you at what RPMs you are, so we can't really say anything. However, the Ducati does so, and we can say that the Ducati really doesn't want to be held below 3000 RPMs. The same probably goes for the KTM, we just don't know the exact number. Is it 3500, 2500? We don't know. However, they're single cylinders, so they don't want to be at too low revs. Let's talk also about the suspension. We noticed that in the city and also outside the city, the suspension of the KTM is simply said, inferior to the Ducati. The Ducati gives you way more feedback and leaves the pilot less guessing about what is happening. So that's also a plus point for the Ducati. The seat height, let's talk about the seat height. Now, I am not the tallest, let's put it like that. And my colleagues are a bit taller than me, so that is very useful information for me and for you as well. I am tall, 170 centimeters, and I have to say, although motards are usually pretty tall bikes, I have to say that I did not have any problems with both of them at all. You can see here that the KTM has it is less wide. It has a narrower seat, whereas Ducati has a wider seat. Why? Why so? Because the Ducati's tanks is in the front and not in the back, like is the case, as is the case with the KTM. So foot position, I could always bring one foot down when at a red light. I had no problems at all with my height. Even less problems had my two colleagues. Doesn't matter the Ducati or the KTM. I have to say though, I envy Gregor for touching the ground with both feet. I wish I could do that as well, which would make the usage of these bikes even more pleasant. However, like I said, no worries at all. It is a very small sacrifice that on lower bikes you don't have to make, but seriously, it is not a big deal at all. Let's talk about the handlebar. The handlebar is a bit taller on the KTM as well. You might think that leads to a more upright seating position on the KTM. That is not the case. Even the Ducati, you can sit on the Ducati and be very upright in its position. That is really there's really no difference to be felt there. The gauge, like I said, is much better on the Ducati, much more sophisticated. Suspension I already mentioned. Seat height is fine, which initially I was really unsure about. Now let's talk a bit about the RPMs. So like I said, they don't want to be held below 3000 RPM, but they can be. In the city, you need to know when you need to shift, which is, well, they're not automatics, and in the city you got to shift many times, but still it works very well. Talking about the transmission, exactly, that's what I wanted to say. The KTM's transmission is a bit sloppier than the Ducati's. However, it doesn't mean that it works badly. It just means that the Ducati's shifting system works very crisply. We all agreed that it is very smooth, and it required a bit more input to be shifted. The gears required a bit more input for you to shift. The KTM reacts with the slightest touch, so that is also, it is a very sensitive shifter you have on the KTM, and the Ducati a bit less, which in my opinion makes it a bit more pleasant on the Ducati, and so do my colleagues. And I think with that I covered the heat dissipation. Yes, the heat dissipation on the KTM is a bit better actually than on the Ducati. You have the exhaust on the left side on the KTM, and on the right side on the Ducati we simply noticed that the Ducati gets a bit hotter or hot a bit faster, more than hotter, and than the KTM, but all in all it worked fine. The suspension, like I said, or maybe I didn't say it, is better on the Ducati, both in the front and in the rear, and the seat height is actually lower on the KTM. It might look like it is taller, it is not, but these 15 millimeters, we have 905 millimeters on the Ducati and 890 millimeters on the KTM. They don't make any difference at all. With that being said, I think I said it all when it comes to riding these two big beauties in the city. If you have any comments or questions about their usage in the city, let me know in the comments and I will obviously answer you. Thank you and see you in the next take. Well everybody, now we're here. Finally in the middle of the twisties here in Barcelona. Coming here, we went through a bit of highway, and now I want to talk to you about how these two behave on the highway and when riding them in a very calm manner. So first of all, suspension. The suspension was already better. Ducati's suspension was already better in the city, and this trend continues even on the highway. The imperfections are simply eaten up way better by the Ducati suspension when compared to the KTM suspension. Now, another aspect is the tank. Now we have a 12-liter tank on the Ducati, a 13.5-liter tank on the KTM, with an average consumption of 4.8 liters per 100 kilometers and 4.1 on the KTM. So you get slightly better MPG on the KTM than on the Ducati. However, it is a very small difference, and in my opinion, negligible. Also because most people who ride these bikes don't really care about that, but it's anyways a pretty low fuel consumption by both bikes. Seating position is very comfortable on either. You can just sit back on the highway, relax a bit, move your butt around, because the seat is very long, as you can see, as is usual for this category of bikes, and that's a very good thing as well. The vibrations on the KTM are stronger. You can feel more vibrations on the handlebar in the city and also on the highway or when riding calmly. However, it's not too bad, but still, compared to the Ducati, the KTM vibrates more. The Ducati's transmission seems to be shorter than the gearing, seems to be shorter than on the KTM, which means that you can still, well, which actually means that both of these bikes have a great gearing ratio, but I would say that the Ducati can be ridden comfortably at 50 kilometers an hour in 4th gear. The KTM might need to be pushed in 3rd gear when riding very calmly. Anyways, I think that is it when it comes to riding these bikes on the highway. They're pretty comfortable up to 140 kilometers an hour, both of them, so definitely not unsuitable for the highway. And yeah, all in all, both pretty equal when it comes to riding them on the highway. So that's that. Now we're gonna attack these twisties and let you know how they compare.
All right, everybody, let's move on to the probably most anticipated part by many of you, the riding impressions. Let's start off with the Ducati. First thing I notice, 0 vibrations. Is this a single cylinder? Doesn't feel like it. Oh, that sound. Hey, that sound, that exhaust is, oh god, so good. It has a very good thumping sound to it. You really don't need to buy another exhaust system for this bike. Look at that sound. When shifting gears, it always lets you notice its Italian heritage. Alright. So like I said, 0 vibrations, neither at 60 kilometers an hour nor at 40. Actually at 40, the slightest bit of vibrations I can feel, but seriously, not that much at all. And it definitely not unpleasant. I wouldn't even say this is a single cylinder by how few vibrations it gives off. 2nd gear here, 3000 RPM, just chilling. Let's try to surpass here very quick. So how does it feel in the twisties? Oh yeah, fantastic. Quick shifter, whoa, smooth like butter. Works great, works really great. It needs just the right amount of pressure to be activated. Up and down, flawless, no problems at all. Quick shifter, smooth like butter. Exhaust sound, awesome. Suspension, heaven, sent from heaven. I don't really weigh a lot, but still, this suspension is just press it. You can really press it into the corners. This bike has so much grip. Yeah, the tarmac here is fantastic in Barcelona, and we have the new Continental Conti Attack SM2 Evo on this bike. It is a fantastic tire, really. It lets me really go all the way down, and it's only March. It isn't even that hot. lots and lots and lots of grip. Suspension is fantastic. Seating position, awesome. The seat itself is pretty... I wouldn't say it's too hard. Yeah, it's not the softest. Many hours on this seat will probably lead to your bum letting you know it needs a break. Sound is insane, really, really good, and the performance also when accelerating in sport mode, the front just goes. Afterwards, we're gonna try the KTM. This corner in third gear here. Bam bam. Oh, sport mode really lets you go all the way. Quick shifter, so nice to have. The mirrors are very useful, even at high RPMs. There are no vibrations, so it's not like the mirrors become unusable. Also, like I said, fantastic. What else is there to say? I think I've actually covered it all, which makes me say, let's swap these bikes out, let's grab the KTM and let's see the difference between the two, and then let me tell you which one I prefer and which one, in my opinion, is more worth the money. Now first, I need to turn around. Okay, let's quickly switch bikes. Now I've ridden this bike in sport mode. Obviously, I'm gonna ride the KTM in its most aggressive setting. Hi Gregor, hi Shaf. What's up, Howie? I'm gonna steal this bike from you. See you soon. Alright, time to use the orange one. First thing I noticed, more vibrations. More vibrations at 50 kilometers an hour. Let's slow down a bit. Yeah, at 40 kilometers an hour, yeah. My fingers vibrate. More so than on the Ducati, definitely. No, let's talk about the seat. I can use this time and talk about the seat. So the seat is equally as hard. It grips my bum more than the Ducati does, but still I didn't slide around on that seat either, neither do I on this one. So both seats equally as hard, I'd say, equally as holding of my bum. Vibrations more, the mirrors are still very usable. Let's see at high RPMs. Okay, let's talk about the torque and the suspension. So, throttle second gear. Oh, does not feel faster than the Ducati. Does not feel like it has more torque. I'd say they're equal in horsepower and torque. I don't know, I can't see my RPMs, so I don't exactly know when there's a limiter, so can't really say anything about that. But I'd say the suspension, the torque and the speed, the acceleration is the same for both bikes. Move on to the suspension. Suspension in here, it's actually fine for me. I'm not really big boned, let's put it like that. I'm a really skinny guy, I'm not very tall, so I don't weigh a lot, and therefore the suspension has no problems with my weight. My colleagues actually said that the Ducati suspension feels way better than this one. They weigh a bit more, so that might be their reason. This map has a supermoto ABS. I could slide with the rear in these curves, but I really don't know how to, and I don't want to find out now. So all in all, I would say that actually the Ducati offers a better ride for the money, but still this is a great bike as well. It is a bit more old school, let me put it like that, but it is fine. Overall, I have to say though, according to my friends, the suspension of the Ducati is better, but the engine, it is about the same. So that being said, let's conclude this part.
Alright, let's talk about the Ducati's electronics. Let's turn the key and check out what it has to offer. So, we still have an LC display on the Ducati, but we can read many more information from it. We have 4 different riding modes, everything is lean angle dependent, we have wheelie control, traction control, which you can set in different settings, 1, 2, 3 and 4. And the wheelie control, the whole electronics package is on is not an optional, it comes as standard. Only the quick shifter is an option on the standard model. We have the RVE model here in front of us, so the quick shifter is on it as well. Now let's talk about the ABS. The ABS can be configured in 4 different modes. In 4 is the safest mode where nothing really happens. You ride this bike very safely. And in the 3rd mode, it is a bit less so. In the 2nd mode, you get to slide the bike, however, in a bigger angle. And in the 1st mode, you have the ABS turned off at the rear. It is no longer lean angle dependent, and you can slide however much you want. The KTM's electronics package is not as complete as on the Ducati. We still have the old-fashioned LC display on it. We have 2 different riding modes, 1 and 2. One is the calmer mode, if you want to call it that, where everything is activated. You have ABS on the front and on the rear. Traction control is active, so no real wheelies. You can ride this bike in a very serious and a very calm manner, and nothing else to say. In the 2nd mode, the ABS on the rear wheel will be turned off, so you get to slide around, and the traction control is lessened, so you can actually wheelie, but still not as easily as when you turn the traction control off, which you can do. What else is there to say? Not really much about the electronics of these bikes. However, the quick shifter comes as standard with the KTM 690 SMC-R. Well. Now we finally got to ride these bikes where they are at home. So the question is, the Ducati, on paper, it has less torque and a smaller displacement. Is it really weaker than the KTM when it comes to its torque? Because the horsepower is actually more, right? Now, we couldn't really find an objective answer to that question. However, we have to say that there is no difference to be felt. We even had a test where we accelerated heavily. We did kind of a drag race from 3rd gear, starting at 50 kilometers an hour, and the results were that both bikes are equal. So even if on paper the Ducati has a slightly smaller engine and slightly less torque but more horsepower, both bikes in terms of performance are equal. So everybody, what is the verdict? What do we say? Now, we have 2 very, very good bikes here in front of us, and they're both great choices. Now, if you order one of these, either of these, you did a great job. However, in my opinion, there is one winner among these 2 bikes. The winner for me is the Ducati. It has a smoother gearbox, it has a better suspension, a way better sound, and in general, it offers simply more. Now, what about the prices? The prices, well, they depend on where you live. But I can tell you the prices in the USA. In the US, this bike costs exactly the same. they cost exactly the same, if not $5 difference, which means they both cost $12,980 or $85, and then it depends on the dealer markups what they charge. If you don't live in the US, don't worry, just check for yourself when it comes to the prices. All in all, I have to say, good job Ducati. You take the throne this year when it comes to supermotos, thanks to this great package.